What is culturally committed? We are a place where health providers can come to deepen their knowledge around the subject of cultural safety and humility, where we can have open, honest discussions with elders and mentors and learn about what culturally safe care looks and feels like to Indigenous peoples. Okay, so welcome to Culturally Committed. My name is Kim, and if you are seeing this, then I would like to extend my gratitude to you for choosing to open your heart and expand your understanding around the topic of cultural safety and humility. I would like to acknowledge that Ethel and I are joining you from the traditional territories of the Snona'ez people and the Laichwiltach people. And for those that are viewing, I would ask that you take a moment to reflect on the land on which you are residing and consider that we are all occupying space on the traditional territories of the First People of Canada. And so now I would like to introduce my friend, Ethel Henry. Go ahead, Ethel. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Kasa, Nugo Max Wisakame, Nugo Laichwiltach. Thank you. And I am just introduced myself with my traditional name. I was given that name by my aunt, who I treasured completely. And I just let you know that I am Laichwiltach, which is from Campbell River. I have been a dental hygienist for 26 years. And I have always been committed to making sure to provide the most professional services that I can.
Well, thank you for agreeing to join me this morning, Ethel. We've known each other for I think around 7 years now, and I've always admired the way you bring a very calm and centered feeling to your interactions with people. And you kind of have like a quiet, when you speak, people listen because usually you have something very thoughtful to say. So I knew that you would be the perfect person to join me this morning to just share your thoughts and experiences. So I really appreciate that you said yes today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just starting out, I was wondering if you could offer a little bit of insight or background onto the region that you live in and a bit of the history. I'm lending towards what the cultural practices are like and what historically the people of the region, how they lived, that sort of thing.
So I am living in the traditional territories of Laichwiltach in Campbell River, and we are mostly water people. We tend to use a lot of the fishing. We also do utilize the land. We are still really working on our traditions and getting back to our traditions after residential school and being not permitted to do a lot of our own cultures. We tend to do a lot of big house celebrations for we do weddings, we do funerals, we provide names, we do celebrations for that transition of the creator allowing us to have our babies at 10 moons, and we do a celebration there. We love to dance, we love to sing, and just to really make that connection. So a lot of our area are relearning. That one is a big one. Our language is being retaught, which is amazing. And many of our younger generation, they're crossed into mixed kind of unknown identities because they're not sure where they stand as First Nations people. So, and then to have the confidence to move forward. So it's nice to be able to empower people to. We've always adapted as a nation, so it's nice to keep that adaptation going, but also to keep some of our traditional.
I know I had a chance to spend time with you during the gathering wisdom, and I thought it was so lovely because I got to see you and your family, in your traditional dress, and so I'm just wondering, you did mention residential school and how that has impacted the community. Did you have the opportunity to grow up with those experiences in the big house, or has that been kind of an evolution back into culture for your family?
And that one was an evolution back. I grew up with not being status, so even though I wasn't status, we still participated in a lot of our gatherings and potlatches. So I did not grow up on reserve. I grew up off reserve. I still had the ripple effects of residential school because my
Mhm.
grandparents were. Um, I also have the traditional Scottish ripple effect. My great grandfather came from Scotland, and really to um, see the ways of how each families were raised was quite something. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I'm
Uh,
grateful that I have both my parents who are very getting in touch with who they are as well, and being, the matriarchs and patriarchs of the family and promoting health and wellness and knowing and learning the culture and sharing what they know.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Mm.
So I'm just curious then if your grandparents were residential school survivors, who did your parents look to kind of teach them traditions that I'm just wondering if your grandparents still pass them down or if they kind of had to seek other teachers in the community to show them the path.
My mom was, she did day school.
Okay.
So, and it was her father who encouraged the transition of not staying in day school, that they should be joined with public school and
Mm,
making that transition. They learned, they would learn off school hours and learn how to dance, and then even as me as a young adult, she took lessons with me when we learned how to do our dances and everything. So it was amazing to have
ah,
three generations learn all at once.
that's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Ah,
Um, my dad actually didn't do residential school. He was raised and would be with his mom, and they would actually do the tour around and do the big house potlatches, which
wow.
was banned at the time. And he would take his mom to reserve, and he would sit and listen and do the traditional. He used to speak fluently in our language, and now what we're finding with our language is that they're having to create different words that were not traditionally there, like a
Mm.
cell phone, for instance, or an umbrella, or something like that. So again, adapting, right?
Yeah,
So my dad was a lot. He would tell us stories about what he had witnessed in those potlatches and the language, and so he did learn a lot by bringing his mom around. Yeah.
that's amazing. I know for me because I've only really had or really started getting a better understanding of the culture in the communities on the island in the past 7 years. And I remember first hearing the word potlatch. I had no idea what that meant. Would you be
hmm
comfortable sharing a little bit about what a potlatch is?
So potlatch is ceremonies that we do, and they're important ceremonies where, like I said earlier, we do namings, we do weddings, and we do memorials and funerals that way. Um, we basically have each family has a box of treasure, and we are uplifting our family and sharing and showing our box of treasure, but also at the end of it, we hand out many gifts, and those gifts are actually payment for what you witnessed. So it's showing in a good way, this is what we're showing you, and now you witness it, and here's your payment. In this area, I was always taught to be very humble, and it's hard to explain all of this, and um, I was taught not to brag. So I really am having a little bit of a hard time with this and explaining all of it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
you're doing a great job. And I think it's interesting that you say that because on one hand, a potlatch, it sounds like it's a real celebration and like a showing of pride in who you are and
Yeah,
and celebrating each other. But then you also have to do it in a way that's very humble. It's like kind of a conflict, hey?
it is. Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. So you're saying like the ceremonies take place in the big house, and so obviously the community that you live in is a longhouse community. Yeah,
Big house community.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so I don't know this. Big house and longhouse aren't usually used interchangeably, or does big house mean like a place of celebration and a longhouse is a place of residence? How does that really work?
So traditionally, our residents were big houses.
Okay.
And when you look at how the planks are, this is the difference, is the planks here actually go vertical. They
Oh,
don't go long ways. So there's kind of that difference.
okay.
Um, in our big houses, we have one center fireplace, and I think it's different in the long houses. I'm not sure. Um, the couple that I visit, they would have two fireplaces. So, yeah, traditionally they did live in big houses up and down the coast. They used cedar logs and beams to support, and they would actually traditionally have different areas for families within the big house. So the big house would have our traditional, so I'm thinking on my button blanket, on my regalia, the design, the house design, right? So
Okay.
it would have that on the front of the big house, or a totem pole in front of the big house showing you which families were there. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like it's like your address so
Yeah,
people can find
exactly.
you.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. And then the button blanket is a part of the culture as well. I see that in the Kwakwala, I hope I said that right, culture, but I haven't seen that as much down around the Hokuminum down here, or maybe I'm just not been privy to it.
Yeah, the button blanket is mostly in North Island. Yeah.
Okay.
And traditionally with the families that are connected up and down the coast. Laichwiltach is a part of the Kwakwaka'wakw people, so we do have the button blankets. Yeah,
So thinking about your practice and I'm just wondering if we can go back a little bit to talk about the impacts of residential school and how our children may have been affected as far as accessing dental services while they were students of the school. Would you be able to share a little bit of background on that?
residential schools that were around our area, many were not treated well. I heard about there used to be a traveling dentist that would come up on ships, and I know that they used to line up the children, and the fear that was instilled in the children because they would use one needle, one local anesthetic, or a couple local anesthetics, and pretty much, for layman's term, freeze them up and with the same needle. And they children would fight to not be the first person and not be the last person. And obvious reasons, the first person wasn't frozen. In the middle, you knew that you were definitely frozen.
Mm,
By the end, it was gone. So as we know how fast local anesthetic goes through the system, it just sounds horrid on what experience they had. They also Many had told me about that they would see their peers come back and all of a sudden not have front teeth. So their front teeth were all extracted. And
mm,
so treatment that was done has instilled a lot of fear. Many families were that way. The treatment that many First Nations received were not equal or not fair or very traumatizing. That ripple effect has gone down. So it's not just residential school where that treatment and trauma came from. It was previous past dental experiences from
mhm,
parents, and as we know, that travels within the genes, and so that fear is there still
mhm,
within our children. The knowledge of traditional foods and the diet nowadays has changed a lot as well. So we're finding that many sugary products are going into homes, and
mhm,
many children are experiencing decay now. So a lot of the traditional ways of eating and gathering and eating and more of a healthier way isn't there as
mhm.
well. So how do you change that?
Yeah. Or we hear a lot about intergenerational trauma, and I think you're pretty much explaining it beautifully. The loss of those teachings and the fear, and then, carrying those, how you've coped and how you've managed. And, I think people are doing their best, the best that they know how. But I think, sure, it's really difficult for people that are living with the burdens of those experiences.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
I was just thinking because you were saying, did you say your cousin was the one with it and your mother? I think a lot of people don't realize how recent residential school was.
Yeah.
When do you know approximately the year that the last residential school closed in your region?
I actually don't know the year.
No.
No, but I know it was torn down not long ago,
Mm,
within 10 years.
yeah,
So that was a symbolic day for sure.
I bet.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is because I think it's important that health providers consider that residential school survivors aren't old people.
No,
There's people
no.
in their 40s and 50s that could be coming in the door that aren't sharing that knowledge with
Yeah.
providers and being very fearful. And I think that sometimes people think it was something that happened a long time ago, but it's not.
Yeah. No, it's not. I know Port Alberni was in 1970. No, 1980. So that's our generation.
Yeah, so I think that's good knowledge for health providers to have, like, to just be aware that that might be somebody's experience and just to try to be sensitive around it, right?
Hmm.
I'm just wondering if we can talk a little bit about what that trauma might look like when people are trying to access care. Could you perhaps shed a little bit of light on what you've seen in your practice when people are coming in?
So many are very fearful. That's number one. Um, Many are embarrassed about their teeth. They want to make sure that they are looking after their teeth, but don't know how.
Hmm.
They're trying to break a cycle by coming in. A lot of times, too, that because they're so fearful, they may not show up,
Hmm.
or there could be other things that could be happening at the time. So it's having an understanding of what is going on as far as that client. You need to know what's going on in the community. Is there a death in the community? As well as you need to understand that depending on the location, but many First Nations are like that. If there is a death in the community, everything shuts down.
Hmm.
All the family would gather and be supportive of that family that lost someone in their family.
Hmm.
um, it takes a village, like many people here, it takes a village to raise a child, but it is also a village to support the village
Hmm.
and to be aware that they have been through trauma. There's many things that can block them from coming in for treatment. So that was just one example of what could be blocking them from treatment.
I would love to hear your perspective because I know you do own your own practice. And I just think back to my practice experiences and no shows. And then also what I hear from my Indigenous patients now, when people no show, they are penalized and offices can become very frustrated.
Hmm.
And oftentimes they will, ask for a no-show fee, which is money that, many people just don't have, and that creating another barrier to care. I'm wondering what your practice does as far as no-shows go. Do you have a policy for no-shows?
I personally did actually have a fee, and in some cases, it worked. In some other cases, it didn't work. Um, if there is a fee that they have that they did no show, I will actually put them on a short call list and waive that fee if they come in.
Okay.
So there was a way around it. And really, a lot of it is that communication and understanding. You know, all I ask is that you communicate with me. You're trusting me with your care. I'm trusting you that you're going to come.
So could we talk a little bit about things that you do in your practice to help create that comfort for people? I know, knowing you, how you bring such a calm presence, and then you're such a beautiful communicator. I'm sure you bring those pieces to your appointment as well.
I really try and make a good connection with the client. Knowing what their personality is key. Knowing, um, what do they do? Are they a fisherman? Are they a mechanic? Or anything like that? So what I do is I will respond or provide care that they could understand. Like I make that connection so that way what I'm doing is going to be an impact on their life because they're trusting me with their health of their mouth. So,
Hmm.
and it that one is a big one. I'm in their space. I am right in their space, their personal space. And in some cases with past trauma, that is a big stress on that client. So if I'm not aware of what they've been through and who they are and how they communicate, I'm not making a connection. And
Hmm.
I've had fails, where I'm not everybody's hygienist,
Yeah.
but I am grateful and I'm so excited when I do see so many people come back and they're healthier.
Hmm.
That is a big one, but definitely being calm, having a good communication skills as well as really listening is a huge key
Hmm.
to supporting the clients that are coming in.
Yeah, those are great suggestions for how people can kind of adapt their care to be more sensitive. And I love that you have admitted that you have fails. I've had fails too. And so like with culturally committed that I'm creating, I think like the overarching theme is that it's clinicians that are improving cultural safety for people, but recognizing that we're not perfect. You
No.
know, we all make mistakes,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can learn from those mistakes and adapt our care and not make that mistake again. But we do our best. Is there anything else that we could circle back to that you want to add a little bit more to?
I think to agree with you with when you talk about getting to know the area that you're working in, um, that you need to understand what has happened in that area. As a provider, how would you handle your children being taken away from you? How would you handle that if you didn't, you're going to jail? That that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
How would you handle your culture being forced to stop? How would you handle your way of life and not do what you traditionally did? Um, Really, as a provider, really understand what has happened to First Nations.
Hmm.
Um, it's not something that happened within a couple of years. It's happened for 100 years. And when you look at why is there drugs, why is there alcohol, why are all these things happening, look at that foundation of 100 years and those generations of trauma
Hmm.
and think about that.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine someone coming along and taking my child away. And when I say that, these children were 3, 4, 5 years old and they had to go. One day they were playing on the beach, next they're gone.
Hmm.
And that's happened. Like my own aunt. My aunt was taken that way. And to this day, even though she's quite a lot older, she's still baby Christine.
Aw.
Or, there's a lot of that has happened and that's my aunt that that would happen to.
Wow.
Many communities were um they were forced to move off of their traditional lands. They had to because the Indian agent made them.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden you're putting in an area where you don't have your tradition of hunting, fishing, gathering, and your village, your house all set up the way you like it, and you have your routine. You were placed into a small house for many people, and it's not built well, it's cold, it's a lot of this, and this was only in the 70s this happened. So when you think about all of that, you were forced to move. If not, you
Hmm.
would go to jail. This isn't long ago,
I know.
40 years ago, 50 years ago. And again, you wonder why there's drinking and
Hmm.
fetal alcohol syndrome and all of these different things that impact First Nations. That's just a small area that this has happened. So, what's happened in your area?
Yeah.
Really, to know all these changes that are going on. Yes, we are very adaptable people. We are very humble people. And really, you got to remember too that they're trusting you as a professional to treat them professionally.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's something that everybody can take something away from.
It's very really to even myself as a professional to still have that compassion,
Hmm.
to still know that many are still surviving on this trauma.
Hmm.
And survival is the key word here, that
Hmm.
we need to keep that and be that supportive person for them.
Hmm.
They are the best person to know what's best for them.
Hmm.
And we're there as a provider to provide a service to help them.
Yeah. I think I'm just thinking because we've talked a lot about like a relationship centered care and how important communication is.
Hmm.
And I hope what health providers take away is that how important it is to try to build those foundations, but also recognizing that people might not be forthcoming with their information at the
Right.
beginning because what the story you just shared made me reflect on a story that was shared with me by an elder about when he was in residential school, and one of the children spoke out, and they slept side by side in beds, and in the next morning that child was gone and was
Yeah.
never to be seen again. So
Yep.
it makes, I'm sure it has a huge impact in people. Like, if this is what happens when I speak up, there's going to be
Yep.
consequences. So really creating space for people, and have a lot of compassion, and recognizing that you might not be getting the whole story the first time. It might take a long time to build that trusted relationship, but eventually when you do get there, how fruitful it can be, right? How you can
Hmm.
really help somebody. And I know you and I last night were chatting about people that we've been able to connect with, and then really be a part of that transformation, and then coming into their realizing their self-worth as they improve their oral health and becoming more confident people, and that confidence transferring out into what they're doing in the world and how they're raising their families. It's such a privilege to be a part of that.
One simple presentation can change someone's life. Like,
Yeah.
just how do you uplift people? We need to show that professionalism all the time.
Yeah. Well, Ethel, I really have a lot of gratitude to you. And you'd said role models, and you're such a role model to me. I think you're such a not only an impressive clinician, but just an amazing person. And I really value all the knowledge that you share. So thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
the time and sharing it with me today.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity and I wish you best of luck.
Thank you so much. And then for people that are seeking care in the Campbell River area, what is the name? Do you want to share the name of your practice?
Sure. My practice name is Care Dental Hygiene. I am getting a building. It should be delivered in January. So it's
Exciting.
coming along. It's a four-operatory building.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be located right beside the big house. So anyone in the Campbell River area is welcome to attend. It's not um, specifically for any persons. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's public. My dream is finally coming true of having my own practice. I just cannot wait to get it fully separate or situated and set up and
Yeah.
yeah.
Campbell River is
So
lucky to have you.
Care Dental Hygiene, so
Yeah.
that's the name.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sitting down with me today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Take care.
If you are a health provider who wants to deepen your understanding around the subject of cultural safety and humility, and you have questions, or if you are an Indigenous person who would like to contribute knowledge and guidance to the conversation, please reach out to info@culturallycommitted.com.